between the two of them.
The inside of Coates.
Martin gets too heavily involved.
And that's Whitehead and Coates.
Hello and welcome to the GT4 Challenge brought to you by the Virtual Reality Racing Club. We're at Spa-Francorchamps, 7 kilometers and 19 corners of tarmac perfection, located in Belgium and home to what we know as the 6 Hours of Spa, the 24 Hours of Spa and the F1 Belgian Grand Prix. But tonight it's GT4s and I'm Aaron, and alongside me in the commentary booth is my esteemed motorsport fanatic, Dave Marshall. How are you today, Dave?
Yeah, I'm not doing too bad, Aaron. You know, nice for you to join us in the VRRC comms booth.
Thanks,
I know it's your first time, but, you know, I think it's going to be an interesting night. 40 minutes of GT4. We haven't done this as VRRC before, but I tell you what, there's plenty of drivers excited for it, and I'm sure it's going to be great action.
Yeah, so tell us a bit more about VRRC, as I'm new, and some of the people watching this may be new as well. And I wanted to talk to you because I know you do an extensive kind of driver training program called 10 Tenths with VRRC. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, exactly that. So VRRC, Virtual Reality Racing Club, is basically an online community set up for sim racing. You know, we try, and our motto is blurring the lines between reality and sim driving. So we really try and cater for sim racing as realistic as it gets. So hence why we've got a fair repertoire of real life drivers who get involved in our community races. Everything from mini JCW up to British touring cars and everything really that the drivers come from. And 10 Tenths is our coaching side of VRRC. So we do everything from setups on a set of courses that people can go on and buy, but also offer one-to-one driver coaching, and we also do real life stuff. So we've got Max Coates, Alex Toth-Jones and Mike Epps on the real life driver coaching. So, you know, if there's a track day or real life driving that you need a hand with, VRRC is there to help.
That's genuinely amazing, man. I mean, like, it caters to a big audience. The fact that you go from on track to online to setups, and I think a lot of people would really appreciate, especially from the HC kind of standpoint, those tunes would be super helpful, right? They're developed by you and others.
Yeah, so I guess we sort of found a little bit of a gap in the market. You know, the likes of ACC, it's all controlled regarding the content of the game. So you're fixed with the cars, and there's quite a lot of people who provide setups for that, the same as iRacing. But a set of Corsa, is sort of really open with the content and the amount of mods. So the likes of British touring cars, you can download a GT4 cars, anything from Honda lawnmowers if you really want to race them. You know, the likes of them cars, there isn't a database online where you can go on and buy a setup. So what we've offered is, you know, you can go on, buy a setup, tell us what you want it for, what car, what track, what sort of style you want to drive it in. We cater for that, build your setup and send it back to you.
That's great news, man. Let's talk more about Spa. We're here today. 40 minutes of driving in GT4. That's going to be around 18 laps, right? I mean, the track itself is huge, and we were talking about this before. We're not big advocates of Spa. We think it's a little bit too long.
Yeah, so I was saying this to you before, Aaron. You know, for me, it's not the fact that it's an old one. It's not the fact that it's too long. But if you look at the Nordschleife or the Nürburgring, somewhere like that, where you know the lap is 7, 8, 9 minutes long, you're never going to hook a perfect lap together. This is on that borderline where it's 2 minutes 30. You need to hook that perfect lap together sometimes. And if you mess up one corner, you've got to sit there for 2.5 minutes until you're back around the start-finish line and then try it all again. So for me, it's one of them tracks where it's just that frustrating length where it can get really quite annoying when you're trying to put that lap together and you find yourself, you know, spending hours on the game trying to get a perfect lap together in Spa when, you know, like the Silverstone International or GP or somewhere like that, you'd probably spend half the time trying to put it together.
No, I completely agree with you. I mean, you know, I've said it, done many hot laps there myself, and if you get it wrong in the mid-sector, you've got to wait an awful long time before you can set a fresh lap. I think we're on board here with qualifying. We've got just under 18 minutes left of qualifying. The sun is shining here, which is always good because wet Spa is an absolute nightmare. And we were talking about this before as well. The cars that we're seeing, 22 drivers, I should say, 19 are of which in attendance, and we're seeing a lot of BMWs here. You were telling me something interesting about the BMW, Dave.
Yeah, so just in pre-testing, you know, I like to do, you know, what I would regard as like a BOP, so where I like to make sure the cars are balanced and even, and we like to see the board spread out. So if I've done my job properly, let's hope we don't see 5 BMWs at the top of the timesheets. But yeah, we just found the BMW was really quite quick in comparison to everything else. The way in which the engine is built or whatever, when you come out of a corner, it is instant boost. There doesn't seem to be any sort of real turbo lag compared to the other cars. So for all on the stat sheet, it's still 440 brake, the same as the other cars. The way the power delivery comes in just allows it to really build that momentum a bit faster. So we've ended up putting a 10 kilogram ballast in the car just to sort of, you know, penalise it off the corner and especially on the brakes a little bit. And then we've also put a 17% restrictor on the power in there, which I know sounds like a lot, but when this car was over a second up the road compared to everything else, let's hope it's going to level the playing field out. We should see times at least within 2/10.
A 17% restrictor, but that's a lot, and I hope you're right, and I hope your work doesn't come undone. But what ultimately what you're saying is, surely we should be seeing BMW or the M4s around the top still, but when it comes to the race, it should be a little bit more competitive for the Mercedes, which I gather is a little bit more understeer in this game.
Yeah, so that 17% restrictor is only on boost pressure. It is on the overall engine, if you like. So,
yeah,
that boost pressure, it doesn't really have that much of a major effect on the way the car feels or performs. It's just a little bit slower everywhere. But what we've noticed is in qualifying, it's still definitely up there on the timing sheets. There's the fastest time so far still being done by a BMW, but the likes of the McLaren, the likes of the Mercedes are also equally fast. I believe there's one driver braving out in the Toyota Supra, Max Goff down there, currently in 10th place. Expect to see him up right on the timing sheet. Robbie Staleford actually is also in the Supra, but a very late change into the car, so very limited seat time in it. So be interested to see what Robbie can do. The car is very lively. It's obviously based on a BMW Z4 underneath, and that shorter wheelbases, meaning that yes, it turns in and rotates well, but in a racing scenario, it's definitely the lairier of the car. But yeah, the M4, it's still going to be really competitive in quali. It might struggle with that restrictor a little bit more once it gets that full tank on board.
Yeah, that's really, really important. I have to say, though, I love the fact that the Supra's in AC as well, and that 2 people are representing it today. Like you say, one person's not had the seat time in it, but I have to say, I just want to kind of agree with you on this. It does it feel like it's a matchbook because of its short wheelbase? It's kind of twitchy. Feels great to a point, but then it can really easily go over, and it's very hard, and you find yourself counter steering a lot. Is that what you're trying to say about the Supra?
Yeah, so if I'm honest, in a racing scenario, as we just see there, Max Goff actually a 2:29.6. That's exactly what I was talking about that Supra. if you can hook that lap up, it really pulls the time. But in a racing scenario, I tell you what, you've got your work cut out to try and lap it actually consistently. The car is a real handful to drive, and I'm sure we might hear from Max Goff actually and basically talk through that. But fair play to him. I talked to him earlier on in the week, and he went, "No, Dave, I know it's a handful of a car. I'm going to choose it. I'm going to stick it out, and I'm going to make it fast." And he's not proven us wrong. He's going to put it on pole. Actually, I say that Robbie Staleford with the 229.5. So actually, both drivers in the Supra actually at the moment showing what potential that car really has in qualifying.
Well, that's a great job as well for someone who's had such a little amount of time in the driver's seat of that Supra. I have to say though, Jordan Brennan dropping down the order here, now 6/10 off the leaders. He was provisional pole with 17 minutes to go. We're now at 13.5 minutes to go, and we see these lap times coming in. And I mean, you have to talk me through this, Dave. I'm new to AC. How long does it take to get these tyres to warm up during qualifying?
So honestly, all the cars have got tyre blankets coming out the pits.
Oh,
so,
lovely.
But by the time they get to the start-finish line ready for their flying lap, as long as they've looked after the tyres and not overworked them on that out lap, you know, it's quite easy, especially in these M4s, to just throw it a little bit sideways and have a bit of fun. But you've got to resist from that. You know, you've got to be a nice chilled out open lap, keep the tyres on point, and then to be fair, you can get a good 2 or 3 laps out of the tyres where you're pushing for ultimate lap time. And as well with the fuel, you know, it's a 2.5 minute lap. Anything more than sort of 2 or 3 laps worth of fuel in the car, and you're going to start to really notice that on performance down the first straight and the back straight.
Tyre blankets for GT4s. I mean, that's a very interesting concept. I hope they bring that to ACC. I really could do with that instead of spending 5 laps out of the track just to get a hot lap out there. That's really difficult. As we are on board with Andy Cowell here, sitting in P12, currently just under 4 seconds off provisional pole. And I have to say, he's getting awfully close to Butler. Is that Rene Butler?
So that I believe is Max Goff just in front of him. I think we need to come up with a nickname. I was going to call it the Pink Pig, but I think Porsche's already claimed that with one of their cars. But we'll maybe come up with a nickname for Max Goff's car. It's definitely distinctive, isn't it?
It is. It's almost like a rose gold, I want to say. It's definitely. I can't. We will come up with a name. That is our mission for today. We are going to come up with a name for that pink Supra. It's got to be something. We'll figure it out. Goff though in second position. Stapleton still remains on pole, only by less than a tenth though. Less than a tenth. As I think Brennan has just improved in his time, takes him up to P4. Edmondson in third, so 2 BMWs in third and fourth, and then it's a 1-2 for the Toyota Supra. I kind of think of it as a Z5 though, Dave.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a Z4, and actually, just while it's on the screen there, we're looking at Rich Hayden. He's the only driver in this Sin 1, and I'm not going to lie, I had to Google it a little bit before the race and find out what it was, because I'd never heard of one, but apparently it's a GT4 homologation car made in Bulgaria, and they've developed it into a road car. But I think you'll agree, Aaron, it's quite a spectacular looking machine there.
It's very striking. It's got that kind of like arachnid look to it. It kind of reminds you of like the Mistretta from Mexico almost. But I would love to see a road going version of that. It's cracking though. He's in the top 10 at least. For
me, it's some sort of hybrid between a Lotus and a Ascari, I believe.
Now that you say it, I can definitely see the Lotus in it. I definitely see that Lotus front end. That's a cracking car, that is, and still representation as well from Rich Hayden. So this is going to be interesting to see what he can pull out the bag there. He's 2.5 seconds off in 10th place. It's not bad, but he's the only representative, so we don't really know if that car's got the speed really to compete with the pole.
I had a little drive actually earlier on in the week, and if I'm honest, it's one of them cars where it feels like it's got a great chassis, does everything that you want as a driver, but the engine and the gearbox is actually really quite lazy. The gears are very long. It's a big V8 in it, and it just feels like, you know, you want a gear in between for a lot of the corners around Spa. So yeah, really quite awkward if I'm honest.
Yeah, and I want to, you know, the way I drive GT4s as well is I kind of use these gears for rotation as well, especially in like the tighter corners. Maybe go from third to second for rotation and back up to third again on exit. Do you kind of find you're doing the same thing on this game as well?
Yeah, to a degree. You know, the car's already quite a lively car to drive in all the cars, no matter what you drive. They're all, you know, relatively lively on initial turning, but it's just keeping it under. There's actually Max Goff there at 229.1. I mean, I didn't think we were going to see a time anywhere near that. So Max Goff has really done his work in the Super, and that car is not going to hang around. It's going to be really interesting to see whether that lap time can hold its own in race pace.
Stapleford's got a very big gap to bridge there. I mean, 3.5 tenths there from the other representative in the Toyota, a 229.1. Do you think anybody's going to catch that? I expect to see BMWs up there, but they seem to be lacking right now. The fastest BMW closest to pole is nearly 9 tenths off.
Dear me, and just when we said no one was going to beat it, Robbie Still for the 229 111. I think Max Goff there put that in the pit lane there, just to go, right, that's what I can do, boys. And then he's found Robbie Stapleford that's come out and actually beaten him by less than a tenth. So yeah, fair play to the boys in the Supras. That car is obviously very, very hooked up in quali spec, but as I say, that shorter wheelbase, a full tank of fuel on, be interested to see whether they keep them tyres on. And also, they've both qualified first and second. These guys aren't teammates, even though they're in identical cars, they're in Supras. Any sort of battle that they might have in the early stages of the race, they might actually find themselves being sitting ducks to the likes of Edmondson, Brennan and Bird in that McLaren, which I can tell you now, that McLaren down the straight, it's a bit like ACC. That's not a slow car.
No, I know exactly what you mean with the McLaren as well. It's an absolute bomber down the straights, but the thing is, it's in P5. If you've got the track positioning from that quali, getting a great quali result for cars like, I'm going to compare the Toyota to the Ginetta. If this was the Ginetta and it started on pole, it has a very good chance of winning. The problem is, if it starts like middle of the pack but it has the pace, you're going to struggle because the cars around you are better race cars, like the McLaren, like the BMW. So the fact that the Toyota is first and second really brings it like this. They have a real possible chance of winning. They're 8 tenths clear of anybody else on the field right now. Yeah,
definitely. I mean, if I'm honest, to put money on it now, I would definitely say a Supra is definitely looking like the strongest car in the race. I think that's undeniable. But as I said before, two drivers there, both wanting the win very much so. Any sort of trip over them have, the likes of third, fourth and fifth are right hot on their heels to actually snap up any sort of mistake from them.
Exactly, we're on board here with P6 currently, 1.5 seconds off provisional pole. It is Brown in the Mercedes AMG. We'll go back to Brennan in fourth place. I think he's going to be on his flying lap here with just over 6 minutes remaining in qualifying. Gotta love that livery as well, that liquid moly livery. Gotta love that. That's a very smart livery.
and you know what's actually really quite good about that as well? He's got the liquid moly graphics on the rigs, the Norscop, but actually more impressively, Jordan Brennan actually makes his own graphics as well. So any cars on here that you see with the rigs by VRRC up the side, or liquid moly or Norscot on the car, Jordan Brennan's actually made that livery. So not only is he a talented driver, he's also actually a very talented graphic designer.
I love it. Multi-talented people, they can race, but they can do so much more. And I'm not to take it away from people as well. Graphics design is a very hefty business. You've got to have so much skill required for that. And he's done an awesome job. The car looks fantastic. I love that green accent as well. That's the kind of like polar opposite there. That green rigs looks awesome, actually, on that Mercedes.
Yeah, it does. And there's another example. Rob Butler, running the Enviro-sponsored Mercedes there as well. Jordan's got this talent with the graphic design where he'll pick the colour out of the main sponsor that the driver wants to bring, and then represent it in the rigs up the side as well, which is one of VRRC's other side companies that we're going to be making sim chassis in the future. So that's really exciting news as well.
Oh, I love to hear it. I really want to go on board with Max Edmondson for the. Is it the VRRC esports team? I think it is. Riggs Esports Racing.
I believe
team,
it's probably the Riggs Esports. So in his baby blue edition of the Riggs car as well, you'll see there's quite a few Riggs drivers. It's a growing community where they seem to be quite friendly amongst each other. But you'll notice they're not actually all driving the same car. You've got Rob in the Mercedes, Max in the Beamer, and Max Goff up there in second place in the Toyota. That's, even though there's only 5 of them in the team, there's 5 of them between 3 cars. So actually, one of the guys realistically is losing out quite a lot by having to develop his own car and his own setup there.
Yeah, that's a lot of time that he could have been sat in the car, to be fair. But I have to say, I do want to watch his lap though, because he is the closest to the two Toyotas that are almost a second ahead of everybody else in the field. So this is all on Max Edmondson right now. Have to notice as well that Goff has come back out the pits. You said he went into the pits thinking, you know, my job is done here today, boys. It's absolutely not. He's going to go back out there and try and get that 10th on Stapleford. If he can do that, we've got just over 3.5 minutes left in qualifying. No changes so far. No like big changes in the qualifying field. No one's touching the two boys up front. I think Stapleford's just increased his time, in fact, to just over a 10th. So Stapleford's still out there, and he's just wreaking havoc on everybody.
Yeah, I mean, if we manage to delve into the 228, I would say that would be deeply impressive. But I tell you what, to do a low 29 is absolutely mental pace from them boys up there in the Toyotas. But it still worries me a bit, the fact that, you know, we're going to see Robbie Stapleford, Max Goff get off the line. We've seen what turn 1 is like at Spa. It's notorious with, you know, unfortunately quite big crashes. We've seen it in F1 in real life. You know, even if them boys get through turn 1 cleanly, up through Eau Rouge in the tour, they're going to be tripping over each other at the end of that straight. And that's yet again going to leave themselves open to them 3 BMWs really close in there behind.
Yeah, and we were talking about earlier how the McLaren has got that straight line speed. It's notable straight line speed. Starting in 6th, I think that's a relatively good position to start if it stays at that for Bird and the number 8 McLaren, because he's going to be making up plays as well, because that's ultimately faster than the BMW. So hopefully we're going to see a lot of overtaking in the first chapter of this race. Just over 2 minutes to go. Dorman, Hayden in the pits. Have they had enough? Are we going to see them come out for another blast? We don't know yet, but they've still yet to improve on their times. I kind of feel like we're going to see like a last-minute change for the lead. I don't know though. I don't want to call it. We're on board with Edmondson. He's coming across at the last couple of corners through the bus stop. Has he improved in his time? I really want to know if he's improved in his time, even if it's not by 9/10. Just shave that time a little bit. Has he done it? I don't think he has.
No. More importantly, look who's behind him, Aaron. That's Jordan Brennan there behind his teammate. Now, is this going to play a perfect strategy for Jordan Brennan here? Is Max Edmondson going to back it off going through Eau Rouge and give Jordan that real tour down the whole straight? Because I tell you what, that could be crucial tenths that he needs. Or is Max Edmondson going to go, no, actually, Jordan, I want that 3rd place. Let's just battle out during the race.
Now, if that was me, and it's not me, I want to be very clear about it, but if it was me, I wouldn't be helping out with a teammate like that. I'd be like, no, move it over. I'm not. This isn't kind of some kind of Valtteri Bottas kind of like Max Verstappen thing at Russia. This is just get out of the way, don't give him any toe, because it's track position, right? You want to gain track position, and this is a single event, so this is not like building points for a championship. I kind of feel like you're all out here for yourself, kind of thing. Maybe that's a bit selfish. Is that a bit selfish, Dave?
What I am actually looking at here, Aaron, is I'm looking at the lap time board, and I noticed there Max Goff was on a fast lap. Now, that last lap he did was a 2:30.5. So that tells me that even though them boys have posted a very low 2:29, that's not to say that do that lap over and over again. So it's going to be really interesting to see what race pace them cars have. But as we see here, Jordan Brennan actually looks like he's on really quite a decent lap here. So any improvement here, he doesn't have to do much, and he'll have 3rd place in the bag for the start.
That would be great news, really. If he gets 3rd place, I think Stapleford's done his job. I think we're not going to see people take pole of him. Goff's got a good chance. You know, those two going at it. But you were saying before about, you know, the lack of consistency for these drivers. And I have to say, is that because some people have that hot lap mentality over race mentality? And, you know, some people are more consistent, but some people can just really ring out a lap, like a lap over 80 laps. Are we going to kind of see that? Because you know these drivers better than I do. Are some of them hot lappers and some of them racers?
Yes and no. I think to be honest with you, it's more in the car itself. You know, these cars have multiple traction control settings, and some of the drivers find themselves wanting to switch to the traction control mid-lap to try and find a little more speed here and there. But, you know, all it takes is these cars to go a little bit sideways and you'll lose half a tenth on your lap. So It really doesn't take much at all, as we see Jordan Brennan there at 2:30.031. So I believe he did actually better his time there, but still not quite enough to actually beat Max Edmondson there. And I'm also looking at the timing screen here, and currently Max Goff went fastest in the first sector by 0.1 of a second. But like I said before, he's lost half a second in sector 2. So it just shows that consistency with the Supra. Yes, it's really fast if you hook it up, but is that consistency in the Supra going to be a real problem when it comes into the race?
Yeah, that is going to be the big question as we are on board with here with Max Goff coming through the bus stop. As you said, he's lost 5 tenths. Always just going to go straight into the pits. He's not going to finish that final lap, so he'll be driving straight into the pits there. No change for the lead so far as we're on board with Luke Weston in the Mercedes AMG. And will he improve on his lap time? He's still 3.8 tenths off pole, so any improvement will be an improvement for this man. And I kind of feel like you were talking about the Mercedes before, how you've really got to wring its neck almost. You've really got to get its nose turned in, get the power on early, and it will just provide that grip. But if you don't, you're just going to be losing out and just get huge amounts of understeer.
Yeah, the Mercedes definitely isn't one of the more nimble cars on the grid. You know, it's a little bit of a boat in certain respects. It's really key that you get on the brakes quite early, get the front end turned in, but then you can get on the power. And as we've seen, you know, Rob Butler sat there in 7th place. The Mercedes actually really isn't that far off the pace at all. You know, that mid-pack is only separated by, you know, four tenths. Above that, first and second are obviously quite a bit up the road, but the rest of that grid actually is still very, very tight, Aaron.
That is a very, very tight grid. So, and that also, you know, gives us the opportunity for great action here. Big thanks also to Gorilla Mods, who have provided all the GT4 cars in AC. So big thanks to them as well. I have to say though, looking at the grid, like you said, apart from the top two, the front row of Toyotas, it's a very close grid. What are you expecting to see here into the first, like, Eau Rouge Radion? Are you gonna expect people to kind of filter in, or are you gonna expect people to door bang and go side by side through a Eau Rouge and a Radion?
Oh, I think without doubt it's definitely going to be full of action, Aaron. I don't think there's going to be any give or take here. I think we're going to see 2, possibly 3 at best up through Eau Rouge.
No give, all take. I like it. I absolutely like it. You know, coming from a history of Simcade racing, I definitely do like the action more than anything else. So and Spa, what a better place to do that as well. Are we going to go on board with it? Is it Robbie? We're going to go and take. Oh, so Dave, I've just been told you're going to be interviewing Robbie, our provisional, well, actually our pole position.
Yeah, so I'm already down in the interview booth, Aaron, with our pole sitter, Robbie Stapleford. I mean, to put a lap together like that, that was almost a constant battle between you and Max Goff.
Yeah, just put the lap together. I think I was on for a 22 minute 28.8, I think, on one of the laps, but just messed up one of the corners, and yeah, but luckily still got pole, so should be good. Hopefully we can just get away with Goff at the start and pull away from the BMWs. And
yeah, I mean, I was saying, Aaron, early on in that interview there, that, you know, you were quite a late changer to the Supra. I take it you found a little bit of extra speed in that compared to the BMW, and you've really proved that by putting it on pole. I mean, I take it the strategy here is to work with Goff and go ahead, or do you reckon, you know, Max is going to be fair hungry for it, and are you going to get caught in this bit of a battle?
Hopefully not. Hopefully we can just, like, work together, and hopefully we get away from Max and Jordan before we get to, like, the end of that one, and then hopefully we'll just start to pull away as we've got the speed. So we'll soon find out after it all kicks off. And
last sort of question for you, Robbie. You know, this is one of the first sort of longer endurance races we've done as VRRC. You know, this is going to be a 40-minute race. It's got a mandatory pit stop in where you have to take tyres and fuel. But that pit stop window is open from the first minute all the way to the end of the race. So regarding strategy, you know, with the pace you've got in this car, are we expecting to see a slightly shorter stint, or are you going to try and go distance and really build up that lead? That basically means the other cars can't really come back at you.
Hopefully just build up the lead and just keep it from there, really.
I'm
not really on the grid.
Well, that's great to hear you, Robbie, and we'll look forward to seeing how you get on in race. Well, I was going to say race 1, but it's the only race tonight. And good luck, and we'll hopefully speak to you after the race.
Cheers.
As you can hear, Aaron, he's got a little bit of a strategy in mind there, I would have said.
He seems extremely confident. Really, really confident. I mean, after putting in a banging lap time like that, who wouldn't be really confident? But I tell you what, Spa just really, really does eke out those slight mistakes that the best of best drivers make. They just make the biggest mistakes there, I find.
Yeah, I mean, you sort of heard it from him that he's managed to put the lap together there. And he was on for a 28.8, which I find incredible speed. And if we're going to see anything like that in the race, you know, that is going to be one hell of a time to try and beat. But yeah, Max Goff, I think he knows Max Goff's not going to let him go, you know. I think he knows he wants to battle him. Max Goff's going to be really hungry for this win as well. But if these drivers don't work together and try and get away, they're going to trip each other over. Max Edmondson, Jordan Brennan is on the second row of that grid behind them, and them both are teammates. So them aren't going to be battling too hard together. They're going to just be going forward. So, yeah, Robbie and Max, they need to watch out at that start.
Yeah, exactly. Those two Toyotas, if they don't sort themselves out quickly, those BMWs will be hunting them down within the first couple of laps there. As we're looking to get on with the race, man. I'm pumped for the race. Let's get racing. What are we waiting for?
Well, I believe there's at least 2 minutes left before the race is actually undergo. But yeah, I was trying to get out of Robbie there as well. A little bit of this race strategy. You know, we've got this mandatory pit stop involved where you've got to take fuel and tyres, but that pit window is massive. You know, you could only go and put 10 litres in your car, especially if you were sat on pole. You know, go and pull away from the grid, but then it's an early pit stop, and it might mean when you come back out into that grid, you end up right at the back of the pack and have to fight through the traffic. So, yeah, pit stop strategy here actually could play quite a big role, Aaron.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you there, Dave, as well. Just talking through the pit strategy or the pit structure, that all drivers will have to serve a mandatory pit with fuel and tyre changes, which is huge. That's big because it's a long time for them to change tyres. And you have the pit window is between the 1st minute and the 40th minute. So really, you have the whole race to pit as well. That is key.
And I tell you what, Aaron, huge news here. I'm noticing Robbie Stapleford actually isn't on pole. He is not at the front of the grid. I can see him there. He's just off in the left-hand pit. So, big news for the start of the race.
That means our pole position is not going to be starting this race. Well, in pole, he's going to be starting from the pitch. You can see that he's moving there now. We've got red lights going. Everyone starts to move off the line. And Robbie Stapleford, who put in an absolutely whiz-kid lap, is not going to be there. That's huge, Dave.
Yeah, that's massive. And we saw there, it just cars everywhere. Max Goff, as I predicted, look, that short wheelbase, he's been caught out on the power on the exit. He span it, and I believe, who is that with him? The VRRC M4 car with him, maybe Andreas Rillig. But I tell you what, Robbie Stapleford's come out the pits, and he's actually already in the lead. So we'll wait and find out what happens there. Max Edmondson is up into 2nd place, and I believe, is that Rob Butler behind him right in the tow? But there's that McLaren. Watch this come through. 2nd place is on here for Max Bird.
Lights are on for that McLaren. He's just looking up towards the inside of the Kemmel Straight. Brakes late, trying to outposition himself through. Oh, and he taps the rear end of the BMW there. That is massive. I think that was Brennan all the way down. He span around all the way around there. Everyone moves up a place. How did Stapleford come out the pits into 1st place? That's insane. That carnage at La Source has allowed Stapleford back into pole position. He's leading this race by a quite comfortable margin. Butler in 2nd, 3 seconds off Stapleford, and Andy Carroll in 3rd, battling hard at the AMG though. BMW of Brown just behind him. Oh, I think that's Brennan, in fact.
Yeah, I mean, I tell you what, the driver that's really impressed me here is there's Rob Butler, who started 7th place on the grid, has managed to get him up into 2nd place, and actually Lewis Brown, who was also with Rob, is there up into 4th. Jordan Brennan here is battling side by side, going into the right-hander. Is he going to have a look at the inside of Andy Carroll? Actually, there's another point. Andy Carroll is up from just outside the top 10 to now 3rd place on the grid.
That is insane. Podium contention there for Andy Carroll. starting way down the order, but all that carnage is he sifted through it, just sneaky through there. Great driving, liquid driving almost, as they come towards to complete the first lap here. As the pack sort of spreads out, there's a big battle here for 3rd, 4th and 5th as we're on board with Brown in the Mercedes. And this is going to be quality here. Let's see what they can do through the last section. Weston down the bottom, battle with Edmondson. Edmondson was in 3rd. Edmondson taps him round. I think that was, sorry, was that Bird that tapped him down there?
I believe that was, yeah, that was Max Bird on Luke Weston. That was a little cheeky nudge there from Max Bird. And I tell you what, from the start Max Bird had along that straight, from down to be 13th place, if I was him, I'll be really considering get the car in the pits, get that tyre change done, get that fuel change, and let's go for a lap. But this is 3 abreast, Aaron. Going into turn 1, I don't know whether that's going to work. That's Jordan Brennan going very defensive here. Andy Carroll in the middle. And I tell you what, Lewis Brown's going to try and get the cut back on both of them.
I mean, this would be great if he can do it in the Mercedes here. I don't think he's going to have the power, though, over the BMW. He filters in the middle. He's done the McLaren. Great job there, but will he be able to hold it up the Camel Straight? He's got to get an absolute drive as we go through a Rouge here. Gets over the curb, nails the apex, straddles the curb at Radion. And can that McLaren get the toe? I think he's too far back, Dave.
Yeah, and look who's coming up behind. We haven't got a name from him yet, but that pink Supra that was spun on the first lap is really starting to attack again, up into 6th place already. I tell you what, and in fact he's already got Andy Carroll before the corner. I mean, he is making some serious headway. Lewis Brown just in front of him. I'm sure it won't be long before Lewis Brown's looking in his mirrors thinking that car is coming quick.
Well, my question to you, Dave, is how much damage are we going to see here? Because Max Goff got turned around at La Source. He didn't even get a chance to make the apex. He got turned around. Great job to get back into 5th place, but is that damage going to be a factor here?
You know what? I'd like to try and find a replay, but I'm not even sure where Max Goff was actually turned around there. It might have been that he was just a little bit early on the throttle and actually lost the back end. And it looked to me like he just did a nice little pirouette, a nice little 180 up against the wall, and then managed to pull away again. So, you know, looking at the lap times, I don't know how damaged that car is, but saying that, he's managed to pull 2 tenths here on Lewis Brown. We know the Mercedes is a little bit more sluggish, so I might have expected that. But I tell you what, he's got some serious gap now between Jordan Brennan and Rob Butler. You know, Jordan Brennan here is 3 seconds behind Robbie Stapleford. Stapleford's pulled away. Jeez.
He's gone. He's absolutely gone. Well, a flying start from Stapleford from the pits there. He's going to be loving that. That's going to do his egos. Well, his ego, the world of good right there. I have to say, we've seen our first pit already, though, from 15th place, Dorman. Oh, as Davey nearly gets it wrong. Look, he's just mounting the curb there. Hits the grass, completely unstabilizes the Mercedes. And that's going to be easy pickings for Edmondson.
Yeah, it is indeed. Max Edmondson up in the 10th. We missed what happened there because I believe Max Bird was originally further down the grid, and he's actually got up and through past Max Edmondson. Paul Laramie actually in the Beamer that was right back on the grid at the start has found himself up in the 8th place here with Rich Hayden in that Sin R1 just in front of him. There's some drivers here that didn't have the best qualifying, Aaron, but I tell you what, in race spec, they've really found themselves further up that grid.
Yeah, and we were talking about earlier, we were discussing, does Robbie Stapleford have that consistency, right? We were questioning that, you know, as a lead Toyota. Didn't manage to start on pole position, but I've just seen the fastest lap has been set by him already. It's a 29.1, and I have to assume that's on full fuel. So he's equaled his qualifying lap with full fuel. So I'm assuming it can only get faster for the young chap.
Yeah, I mean, he did say he could have done a 28.8, so I tell you what, maybe he wasn't lying with that. To do a 29.1, and we don't know how much fuel he's got on board, but he did say he was going to try and build that gap and then pit. So, you know, it'd be really interesting to find out how much fuel he had on board. But I tell you what, there's no doubt here he's pulling on Rob Butler. But I tell you what, Jordan Brennan is keeping Rob Butler fair true here. He's not closing the gap, but he's also not opening it. They're sitting there at a solid 3 seconds. Max Goff here is really starting to make headway onto the Battle Lewis Brown here. They went across the line just over 6 tenths behind, and already Max Goff is within that half a second window up behind Lewis Brown.
Oh, back was that Bird there in the McLaren, just threw no name, absolutely sent it around the outside. He could have been so easily taken out by the BMW of Laramie there, but no avail. He just sends it right around the outside, takes that position. As we see Goff here taking up on Brown in the Mercedes. That's a great job. He seems to be getting them under the braking zones, which is what you were saying, that Super, you can brake so late in it, and it has that rotation with a little bit of control, with a little bit of finesse. It's absolutely rapid at the corners.
Yeah, so that car, if I'm honest with you, is a real handful. Max Goff's doing a really good job here to show how it can be driven, but that front end is really twitchy. You know, it doesn't take a lot at all for this car to be really quite unsettled, and you lose the back end and you lose massive of time there. So I've got to, you know, be hats off there to Max Goff, and you can see he's already opened up half a second on Lewis Brown, and he's closed the gap to within a second of Jordan Brennan already. But then in saying that, Jordan Brennan's actually closed a second into Rob Butler. So I tell you what, things are really developing towards this podium.
Yeah, this is not all over for the podium. We're just over 30 minutes or 32 minutes remaining in this race, and it looks like Robbie Stapleford is heading by quite some margin at the front. Rob Butler in second place, followed by Jordan Brennan in third, and then Max Goff is absolutely flying at the moment. He's looking to make up positions left, right, and centre as he looks on the back of podium. Well, temporarily on the podium, Jordan Brennan. I don't think he's going to be there for much longer though. Oh, look at that over that curb. That is some bravery right there. I would never dare to do that on that curb. This guy is absolutely flying, Dave.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to admit, you know, he sent us a video earlier on in the week of him pedaling his BMW M30, which I believe was an ex Tim Harvey British touring car, round Thruxton, and I tell you what, he pedals it just as hard in real life as he does on this game in that Super through Eau Rouge. I mean, I tell you how hard he pedals it, Aaron. He actually got told by the people who helped run his car that, you know, these are quite old magnesium wheels, and if one of them lets go at 130 mile an hour, it's going to be goodbye car. So I think he was basically told to back out a bit.
Have reservations. Please think about what you're doing in this poor car. No, I get it, but what an experience that must be, though. Unbelievable experience there as we're on board with Sutton here. Well, just moved from Sutton to Brennan back in third as this battle continues. Well, that distance is coming down, and Goff is going to be in the prime position, I think, by the bus stop to make this even before to make this move on Brennan. How long can he hold off? Like you said, the BMW and the McLarens, they're essentially good defending cars, but nothing has held off Goff so far. Yeah, so it definitely looks like them Supras have the legs on, you know, quite a lot of cars on the grid. They're a little bit better on the brakes, and that front end's really helping them. And them are the zones where that BMW just, you've got to admit, looks a little bit lazy. But tell you what, this race car, it's still not slow, and all it's going to take is Max Goff here to get past Jordan Brennan. Will be in that slipstream, and I tell you what, they might really start to close that door on Rob Butler. Look at that, through the toe there, he's positioned himself to the inside. He's going to go for the outbreak into the last chicane, into the bus stop, makes it work. Brennan's having none of that. He's just going to stay out of the way there, give him the inside. He's playing a safe game, I think, and that was a good call there from Brennan as Goff sees himself into third place. It's not all over, because as we know, they're going to go through the source and then back up the Camel straight, and I think that's where the BMW prevails. Yeah, it is indeed. I'm wondering, Aaron, here, how much Rob Butler's actually going to try and defend this. You know, I know Rob Butler's, you know, sometimes a little bit feisty in his driving, and he doesn't really like people to try and get past him, as no racing driver does. And I tell you what, out of all the drivers on the grid, I think Rob can probably make the back of his car about the widest out of all of them. So this should be really interesting. I know Rob and Max are really quite good mates in real life, but I tell you what, I don't think there'd be any love lost here on the track. No, not at all, as we're on board with the 777 Mercedes of Western here, looking to get on the back of Sutton. It's three Mercedes here covering 11th, 12th and 3rd. And there's a nice space. Oh, as they're going side by side, doesn't look like he's going to do it. Just filters on him behind. I think that's a sensible decision there. Oh, he's going back to the outside. Is there something wrong with that car of Sutton? It looks like he's losing an awful lot of acceleration down the straights here. And Western's getting very, very impatient. I wouldn't be surprised to see a overtake past the Kemmel Straight. Yeah, you know what? I don't know whether that is maybe. I think that might be a case of maybe a difference in traction control settings. You know, Mick Sutton might have his turned up a little bit higher, just to make sure that it's keeping the back end under check. And all it takes is Luke Weston to be 1 or 2 clicks less on that traction control, and it really opens that car up and allows it to, you know, use the power if it can put it down, which by the looks of it, it definitely is. Yeah, I have to say here from Stapleford, who's just extending his lead at the front. He is 9 seconds ahead of second place. There is just no stopping that young man. He's doing a cracking job here, and I honestly, with just under 30 minutes to go, I don't think Goff's got it in him to catch that gap. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see. He's 1.4 seconds off Butler, and he's going to catch that, and I'm for sure he's going to overtake him. But then, is that gap too much to reel in from the first place currently?
It maybe is, but I tell you what, while it's on the screen, what a move that was by Luke Weston round the outside of Mick Sutton in one of the fastest double left-handers. What an incredible move that was, Aaron.
Yeah, I mean, through P1, you just don't want to go around the outsiders, and especially with a car that has natural understeer, you kind of would expect to feel yourself, oh, he's going up the inside. What a great run there from Sutton. He just found the drive, and you could just see Weston sliding all over the place. They're going to go side by side through Blanchamont. It's going to be mono-y-mono between the two Mercedes here, and it looks like Weston has got track position here. Sutton is going to filter on him behind him. Are we going to see another dive bomb into the bus stop? That seems to be the most predominant overtaking place on the heavy brakes.
And yeah, it's definitely one of the key overtaking spots on the track, isn't it? It's a big, heavy braking zone after a long straight where you've got some real good slipstream. But luckily, Luke Weston there had enough time down the straight, but he's ran wide. This is going to give Mick Sutton the perfect opportunity on exit down to turn 1, the tight hairpin. Luke Weston's got the inside line. This is where Mick Sutton will be thinking, I'll brake early, try and get the undercut, get back up and try and get back past Luke Weston before Eau Rouge. But I believe Mick Sutton's gone a little bit wide there. Luke Weston's got the inside line, and as we saw before, maybe due to traction control settings, just seems that he's got that little advantage.
Yes, both Mercedes really seem unsettled there. Very, it seems like they're very nervous, apprehensive about overtaking each other, and when they make the overtake, they're not making it stick, which is the most important part, and they keep losing out to each other. As we go back on board with Goff here in the number 36 Toyota, less than a second now, 6/10 just behind Butler in the number 77 Mercedes here, as we see that gap from Butler to Stapleton increase once again. That is nearly 11 seconds for the young man in the Toyota Supra. I mean, nothing stopping him, but it's going to be great to see what this, I want to say Z5, Dave. In my head, it's a Z5, but I know it's a Toyota Supra. But,
yeah, I think you mean Z4. But the little coupe beam, it's essentially the same chassis underneath. I believe Toyota developed the engine. The BMW developed the engine as well, sorry. But I do believe Toyota's Gazoo Racing's Tom Ingram, as of last year, helped develop the chassis in the GT4 car. So maybe there'll be some die-hard fans correct me there on the comment section, but I believe that's maybe what's right. I will tell you now, though, Rob Butler was maybe thinking about changing to the Toyota Supra in the last stages of sign-ups, but then decided to go into his trusty Mercedes that he did have last year. But I believe that coming into the last chicane section, you can see there Rob Butler very defensive on the brakes. He's not going to make this easy for Max Goff, and look there, straight away early across, force the door closed. Max Goff's now got it all to do again. But as I was saying, in the run-up to the event, you know, Max Goff was saying the car's quite sideways, and the infamous saying, a bit like DK, Drift King, he was saying, go on Rob, why not sign up and you'll be BK, a bit more like Burger King.
I love that. Have to say, Butler there, through the bus stop, and we can see he's pushing through the toe here. He's going to get track position through Eau Rouge, and they're going to go side by side. I think they are. Butler's not having any of it. Oh, he nearly clambers him. Is Butler in the tyre wall?
I believe Butler, unfortunately there, he tried to carry the super speed through. Oh, and that looks like a very, very poorly car. That was a big impact at that front left. You know what? Rob needs to try and get this back to the pits, but that is looking to me like that might be game over for that car. In fact, it is. Unfortunately, Rob Butler pulled it up with a retirement, but you've got to hand it, Aaron. He was determined there. He wanted to make that stick.
He just sent it, but he didn't have the line to take the normal apex, and then he tried to keep the speed up at the same time. In a Mercedes, you're just gonna steer that boat into the tire wall. I've seen it so many times. I mean, I know you want to keep on to that second place, but look how much you've lost. You've got to play the long game, but we know that Goff is on a flyer, and you did try to defend. He did try to defend in the bus stop. He defended well in the bus stop, but he just didn't make it work through Eau Rouge and then into Radion. It just didn't work, and now he's lost. He's going to be sat in the pits. That's him over for this race.
Yeah, unfortunately, that is definitely a retirement. Luckily, it's not the Nordic life where there's some extortionate fee to go and get your car collected. But you know what? Jordan Brennan actually, since that whole build-up with Rob Butler there and Max Goff, Jordan Brennan's back on the case here of Max Goff. And I tell you what, his lap times aren't half bad.
It looks like that BMW is coming in good, really, as we come towards the halfway mark in this race. Still yet to pit, I have to say. All these drivers so far still yet to pit. And that's going to be fresh rubber for the Toyota, fresh rubber for the BMW. But my question is, the BMW looks like it's doing good when the tyres are bedded in a little bit. He's got that pace now, Dave.
Yeah, he does, and I wonder whether this is maybe a case of, that short wheelbase Supra, is it working them back tyres a little bit harder? Is the M4 with its longer wheelbase managing just to watch its tyre wear a little bit better? As we actually saw there, Jordan Brennan getting really quite close to the back of Max Goff. I tell you what, Jordan Brennan here has some serious pace in that car, and we've just seen there, 230.4, Max Goff's last lap at 230.7. So whether that was the altercation with Rob Butler there, we'll wait and see. But I think it's this early part of the lap where Max Goff can really use the power of that Supra and maybe pull that little bit of an advantage on Jordan Brennan there in third place.
Yeah, I have to say, we just saw that just coming out of shot. Luke Brown getting a bit squirrely out of the source there in the Mercedes, the number 410 Mercedes. And I feel like he could seize this opportunity. If these two are about to start battle, this is the time that he needs to close up, because once they start battling, those lap times increase, and he can really capitalize on that moment here. But it's a really interesting point how you mentioning the short wheelbase really kind of lights up those rear tires. The Supra is using those rear tires more, therefore he's using more grip, and then those tires wear more. So he's using them a lot more than the BMW. The BMW is more, I would say, economical in its tire wear, and this is where we might be seeing it come good.
Yeah, maybe so, but I tell you what, I haven't seen Jordan Brennan coming in the pits yet. It's a 40-minute race here, and it's coming up to the halfway point. Is it going to come down to strategy here? Is Jordan Brennan going to be able to go a lot longer into the race before he has to pit and choose his tyres? Or is the strategy going to play out better if he comes in now, gets the fresh boots on, then tries to get the difference in that lap time?
Yeah, see, this is where I question the whole pit strategy. I would say if it was just fuel, then there'd be a lot more strategy, right? Because if your tires are like, they come good in the later end of the race, you don't really want to be changing them, because then you're putting on fresh rubber again. And if you've got to wait that time, then you're losing as the tires start to bed in. So I kind of feel like if it was just fuel, I think Jordan Brennan would have he could just pit for fuel, splash and dash at the end and go. Where I feel like if Goff pitted, he would be more inclined to pit for tyres because he's using them more.
Yeah, but that's sort of exactly why we've done it, where you've got to take fuel and tyres. We wanted to basically make the pit stop like a control, if you like. So it's almost a standard pit lane time, unless if you've obviously got damage, it's almost a standard pit window. And the time's a bit like a joker lap almost in rallycross. It's a bit of a standard time. You know how much time it's going to cost you, but then you can use that in the strategy in the race to work on where you're coming out in the lap. If you had certain cars that didn't need tyres but others that do, you can see the advantage that would really have with certain cars rather than others. And we just want to be as even as it can be.
No, I understand that completely, and thank you for clarifying that for me, dude. I really do appreciate that. As you see, Luke Brown in the 410 Mercedes and Andy Carroll in the 95 McLaren, both in the pits. Edmondson moves up, Hayden moves up. Just a little shout out to Hayden here, Rich Hayden, running in that. Is it a Sim R1? The only Sim R1 on the field, and he is just quietly moving himself up. Not been involved in anything. He's keeping himself out of trouble, and he's doing really well for it. Yeah,
he's not doing too bad at all, actually. He's 6th place. Out of 15 drivers now, have had a few retirements, and I tell you what, he's there putting the solid laps in, and actually looking at the timing board, he's doing laps that I think he'd be probably quite impressed with, looking at what he was doing in practice. He's got a bit more seat time here in the race, and I tell you what, it looks great, that car, doesn't it?
It does look great, and then now that you've said Lotus, all I can see is Lotus. That's all I can see when I look at that car now. I love the pink and white livery though. That's quality with the Union Jack graphic on the back as well.
Yeah, well, he gave us a cheeky little insight to what the car was going to look like before tonight. And I says, mine, Rich, I said, you do realise that car's pink and white, not red and white with the Union Jack at the back. And Yeah, I think the colours on his PC might slightly be different to what it actually shows, because I think he was fair determined that it was red. So, yeah, enjoy your pink and white car there, Rich.
Yeah, this just didn't. It's not red, it's pink. I love it. Anyway, guys, Luke Brown, Andy Carroll, and Luke Weston. I think that's right. All have served their pits. Still waiting to see what Stapleford is when Stapleford is going to pit. Goff is now 13 seconds behind Stapleford. So now there is no traffic, only lap traffic between Goff and Stapleford, both in the Toyota. Who's going to come out the victor with just under 18 minutes to go here on the clock? It's Toyota versus Toyota, and Stapleford's got that huge margin.
And here we go. Robbie Stapleford is in the pits now. So right on just after the halfway mark, Robbie's in. Max Goff is staying out. So this will see a change in position here for the overall lead. But I do believe Jordan Brennan. Oh no, Jordan Brennan has also stayed out. So actually, Robbie Stapleford here has dropped a few positions on grid, and this might mean he actually has to work back through that traffic to actually get back through. So actually, if Max Goff can go deeper into this race and keep lapping them lap times, you know, last lap he did a 2:29.3, which was 5/10 faster than Robbie Stapleford's lap before he pitted. So I tell you what, if in this clean air he can really start to take some of that chunk of time out of Robbie Stapleford.
Yeah, we hope to see it. We hope for a battle in the last stages of this race. I really do, especially between those two guys that really, you know, kind of dominated qualifying. They've dominated this race in the Toyota, and I also have to say, Dave, I think you chose the wrong car to bop. that Toyota needs some balance or something.
It does look like it needs a little restrictor putting on that turbo, but I can tell you what, when I looked at the timing sheets earlier on in the week and there was people posting low 28s in the BMW, I thought I had no choice, but I had to pull that car back a little.
I mean, I completely agree. I mean, bopping for a championship or bopping for an event with multiple cars is very difficult, so I applaud you for that effort as well, because, yeah, I couldn't do it, and to be precise, and the BMWs are not that bad. We saw them in qualifying. They weren't that far off. I'd maybe say 8/10, and maybe they didn't put the laps together. So, you know, it could have been very close here. The BMWs have had a very strong showing. Jordan Brennan and Edmondson here in P2 and P3. Obviously, that's temporary because Brown, I think, also... Where is Stapleford? Didn't Stapleford take his pits?
Yes,
Whoa, hold on.
I believe we're having a little bit of a tech issue with the timing screen there, because without doubt we've seen Robbie Stapleford in, Rich Hayden came in. There's a good few drivers there that have definitely pitted and lost significant time, so clearly chose to take tyres and fuel, and yet it's still having the one by the name. So unfortunately for us, that's a little bit of a timing issue with the thing, but I think we've got a fair grasp on who has done the pits. You know, Andreas Rillig still hasn't taken his, Jordan Brennan hasn't taken his, Max Goff hasn't taken his, neither has Edmondson. So them drivers there are the ones to watch when them pit who is going to come back up.
Yeah, as we just got reported that Max Goff is actually in the pits. That will short Brendan to the front in the BMW, the number 9. So Goff is in the pits, and this is going to be really interesting. There were about 14 seconds of difference, or 13 seconds of difference between Goff and Stapleford. Let's see how this pans out. Has Stapleford lost any time on his outlaps there? As Goff, you know, gained any time through his pit strategy?
Well, we're interested to see. If I'm truly honest, I think Max Goff there, you know, he was lapping really strong, like really strong. So I'd be surprised if he hasn't managed to close that gap a little bit. But interestingly enough, we're seeing Max Goff is in there at the moment. Robbie Stapleford, they're already back past into 3rd place. Jordan Brennan still sticking it out there, hasn't pitted yet.
That's crazy. And this is what you were saying. The BMW may be more conservative with its fuel economy and tyre preservation, right? So maybe they can run that a little bit longer and stay in that clean air. They don't have to put fresh set of tyres on at this moment. I have to say, with only 13 minutes or 30 minutes and 38 seconds on the clock, they've got to do it at some point, because there are huge penalty ramifications if they don't.
They do indeed, and I don't know what's happening here to Max Goff. He seems like he's in the pits for a very long time indeed. He's dropped all the way down to 11th place, and I believe he's still dropping a minute 5 back. So whether he's gone into the pits and he's opted to select for a full refresh of his car. Basically, the team's basically given it a full rebuild. He has lost significant time, and I believe that could be a really costly mistake.
That's a mistake. There's a mistake happened there. It may be driver error. Something has gone on here. Coming out in P10, he was P2. Something has gone on in that pits, and he will drop out. Well, he'll be rounding out the top 10, which is not what we were expecting to say at this point with Max Goff and his times. And what a great drive he's had up until that pit stop. But that means Stapleford in 3rd place at the moment, provisional. Brennan and Edmondson still yet to pit. I think it's the story's it's ended. He's going to win this race. I can't see no way back for anybody else.
No, I mean it's hard for us to really gauge a time in what it takes to pit. You know, there's different fuel strategies playing out here. There's certain drivers who, when we look at Jordan Brennan, is clearly doing a very, very long stint here on fuel, whereas Robbie Stapleford was probably what we would associate with almost a normal sort of routine, you know, about halfway. But then there was other drivers who pitted extremely early, so it's very hard for us to sort of gauge a time. But yeah, Robbie Stapleford is only 20 seconds off the back of Jordan Brennan here, and I tell you what, looking at the pit strategies at the moment, I'll be very, very surprised if Robbie can't get the job done from now.
Yeah, no, it looks like plain sailing for Robbie Stapleford there. We see Edmondson in the number 13 BMW taking his pit stop, and as he comes back out there, I think he's come out in a solid 3rd position. That is an excellent pit stop there from Edmondson. Brennan leads this race provisionally as he has yet to take his pit stop. Oh, Emerson drops down the place actually. He keeps dropping down. Please don't tell me this isn't another Goff, is it? Please.
No, I don't believe so. I believe he is actually out on track at the moment, so I don't quite understand what's gone on there. But he has dropped down to 6th place, 27 seconds back there. Max Bird's found himself up into 5th place.
That's great. And Carroll straight back up to 6th. Dorman up to... That is a great result from Dorman. I'm pretty sure Dorman was in some kind of explosion on the first lap. He pitted the first lap, and now he's making his way back up. I'm pretty sure I saw Dorman in P15, and now he's in P7. That is an awesome job from Dorman in the McLaren.
Yeah, that is true. And I tell you what, Lewis Brown as well. Also a great drive so far. You know, I felt like he got a good start. He found himself up into 5th position. You know, got himself up a few positions, but he's kept his head down. He's obviously, we can see there, his car is almost immaculate, so we know he hasn't really been involved in any sort of incidents there. And he's sat currently there in 3rd place.
Great job from Luke Brown, and my concern grows by the minute. Edmondson is now in P12. What has gone on in those pits? Something has happened there because he's now in P12, Dave.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I would say is we did see him up there into 3rd place, but when he first went into the pits, he was a considerable way down the grid in the first stint. So whether or not that's just a case of the overlap starting to play in the hands, but I tell you what, he's down into 14th place now, several minutes back. You're right, something has not gone well there with Edmondson's car.
Dave, you've got 10 minutes. You just got less than 10 minutes on the clock. You're in a pink Toyota Supra. You were 2nd place. You're now 9th place, hunting down the back of Rich Hayden. What's going through your mind if you're Goff?
Bitterness.
Just complete saltiness.
yeah. I mean, it's not far, if I'm honest, off just wanting to sort of pull the car over and go, I had a second, I'm really miffed now. But no, honestly, Max Goff, he's got to pick his chin up there. That was excellent driving to be turned round on the first corner and fight himself all the way back up to 2nd place. You know, that really shows, you know, he's got some serious talent behind the wheel, both in real life and on a sim. So fair play to the bloke. Really impressive.
Yeah, our sympathies go out to Goff there because he was on an absolute flyer. And some things unfortunately happened to him, but we will love to see. We'll keep up with where he finishes in this race. Currently P9, and he has already shaved a second off Rich Hayden in that Sim R1 in P8. Gotta say, Stapleford has though resumed the lead of this race. He's now back in 1st as the top guys have taken their pits. Jordan Brennan is in 2nd by 12.2 seconds with Luke Brown in 3rd. Rillig in 4th. That is a high place for Rillig. That's the highest we've seen him all day, I think, Rillig. And Bird running out the top 5 there, Dave.
Yeah, I mean, I'd still think we'll wait to see Rillig actually pit here. I believe he had a rather serious altercation at the start where, there was a rather big collision involving Andreas in the first lap, and I believe he stuck it out and he's still lapping there all the way up to this end of the race. So I expect Rillig probably will drop down. But I tell you what, these top three, Robbie Staleford, John Brennan, and Lewis Brown, I don't really see any of that actually changing there, Aaron.
No, I agree with you completely there. 12 seconds, 12, 13 seconds between first and second, and then a further roughly 9 seconds between Brown and Brennan. Unless some massive altercation happens or some big mistake, which doesn't usually happen at Spa. I know I would say it's a technical track from a bird's eye view, but there's very few places that I feel like you can get it wrong. I think there's one main place you can get it wrong, which is, as we've seen before with Butler, which was Aruz and Radion. But since they're not battling with each other, there's no side-by-side, there's no need to put yourself in any danger. I don't see those times changing.
No, as you say, it's only really Eau Rouge. I say luckily, the hairpins is one of the main overtaking spots for me round Spa. And by the time you get the hairpin, they're all relatively slow speed. So any sort of collisions that do happen in the hairpin markers, all it does is really give the car a slight turnaround and you can get underway. It's not really going to cause any significant damage to the car. Unlike what we saw Rob Butler, where he tried to take Eau Rouge flat while jumping the inside curb. Unfortunately, it didn't pay out. I would have loved to have seen it work. But yeah, fair play at the commitment.
Yeah, look at the bump and scrapes on that. I don't know whether that's headlights or is that just like glittering damage on the front of that McLaren.
I believe that must be that there's no other word for it. That must be an aluminium bumper with the paint rubbed off and it is reflecting like mad.
I mean, what a way to put off the drivers in front of you. Fantastic job here. I don't know whether we're yet to see Bird enter the pits here. Currently in P5. And he's not too far away from Rillig, who you've also mentioned has to pit here, so he could be looking for a strong result. But just an update from the bottom of the field, Edmondson did have something has happened, an altercation with Edmondson. He's now DNF. He's sat in the pit, so it's a sad situation for Edmondson.
Yeah, so we don't really know what happened to Edmondson there. It would be nice to try and find out what happened, whether it was a drive-through or something like that, or a technicality with the pit stop. Obviously, it was something around that. So really unfortunate to lose the driver there. But Jordan Brennan hasn't had that unfortunate. He's had his pit stop. He's brought it back. He's in second place. You know what? He's had really quite a good race, Jordan Brennan.
He's had a really good race, Jordan Brennan. And I'll tell you something, that gap isn't dipping. Stapleford's not getting away here. But I think Stapleford's in a position where he can just chill out a little bit now. He's not needing to push. He may feel like he wants to hot lap here, but he's not. He's doing a great job, but Brennan's not going anywhere. This gap has maintained at this pace for quite a long time now, for the last couple of laps, and so yeah, credit to Brennan.
Yeah, well, I'm just looking at the timing sheet here, and Jordan Brennan has done a 2:30.2 lap time as one of his best. Last lap, Robbie Staleford only did a 2:30.8. So that's a good half a second there. Where realistically, Jordan Brennan here, I'm not saying he's necessarily going to close the gap, but 4 minutes to go, he's not going to be looking like he can close enough to make a pounce. But his pace at the end of this race is definitely really strong.
Yeah, it looks like that BMW is coming really strong in the latter stage of this race. And it could be, we're talking about it from a physical factor, being the wear of the tyres or the fuel load, but it could be just the comfort as a driver. For me personally, it takes a while for me to settle into a race, and so the first 5 laps, I always have a shaky start, but then I find my rhythm, I find my markers, and then I get going. And maybe that's the same for Brennan.
Yeah, maybe so. And it's if I'm truly honest, it's not the way I tend to work. I tend to come out the blocks like a raging bull and try and do as much as I can in the first sort of few laps, and then I sort of lack concentration at the end, and that's when my mistakes happen. So yeah, I work a slightly opposite way, but yeah, Lewis Brown here actually, I believe, is also closing the gap on Jordan Brennan. 0.2 of a lap faster last lap. So Lewis Brown also got some serious pace at the end of this race.
Yeah, they're all coming good at the last stages, and it's a little bit unfortunate because those gaps are just a little bit too big. We've got 3 minutes and 23 seconds left in this race, and I don't think that anybody is capable of bending time and space that much. They could catch 17 seconds or 6 seconds or 12 seconds. It's just not possible. But it's great showing how they're finding their feet in these cars.
Yeah, it is indeed, and we're just looking here. This is the Andy Carroll, the Andy Dorman. These are both exactly the same spec of car, so there's no difference in the car here. This is actually going to be a battle that's probably going to go down to the wire, I would have thought. Andy Dorman just needs to get within that half a second bracket there to really try and close the gap and get some of that tow. Or, that's not to say, just look on there, Andy Carroll's maybe got a little bit of damage to the front of his car. See if you can spot it as well, Aaron. Just on the front left there, there's a little crease in that bumper. Whether or not that's going to hinder him down the straight, that might really bring Andy Dorman up, because I tell you what, looking at Andy Dorman's car, that is clean as a whistle.
Yeah, that looks spick and span. I love that color choice as well on Dorman's car. He looks like he's absolutely flying here. And Carroll, this is probably not what you want to see anyway. A last lap battle, or a last couple of laps in a battle for P6 here. They both deserve it though, the way that they fought through this, the way that they fought through the pack, because they both didn't start at the top, did they? They were around the rear end of the top 10 at the very least. So these two guys are going to battle it out. Eyes also on Rillig, because we said that he's got yet to pit. He's got what, 1 minute, less than 2 minutes left to pit if he has to pit. But if he doesn't have to pit, he's only 2 seconds away from Brown, and that is for podium.
Yeah, to be fair, we're saying he hasn't pitted. He might well have done. He might have just, had that little bit of a collision at the start, had an early pit stop, and this is him who's just been chipping away, putting in the solid laps, and has managed to climb himself back to 4th. We need to wait and find out.
Yeah, this is a quality end to a quality race here. 1 minute 27 to go. Less than a couple of laps left in this race. Stapleford leads, Brennan second, Brown third, Rillig in 4th, Matt Bird in 6th, Carroll in 6th, Dorman 7th, Hayden in 8th, and as we can see, Goff here trying to go around the outside of Blanchimont. Is he going to hold it? It's a very dangerous line. Will that R1, oh, he just filters in behind there, goes wide there, doesn't want to collide with the back of that Sim R1. Oh, as they touch, going into the bus stop. Big dive bomb there from Goff. He's having none of it. He should have been in P2. He's super salty right now, but that was a great overtake, and there's nothing Rich Hayden can really do about that, Dave.
No, that was definitely a case of Max Goff there was when you know what, if you're going to run as wide, I'm definitely going to outbrake you going into that right-hander. And that's exactly what's happened. But I tell you what, I did notice while you were talking about that, Aaron, that Robbie Stapleford actually had a crash with the environment that came up on my screen at about 4 miles an hour. So whether or not he's just clipped that inside wall in turn 1, I believe, that could be interesting to see whether he's done any damage. 20 seconds left of the race. That's not exactly what you need to be doing.
No, that's silly. But we're on board here with a battle, mono between Dorman and Carroll. And it looks like Carroll is going to stick it to the inside of the common. Gets to spin, though. Saves it from going into the wall there. But he'll lose on that position to Dorman. I kind of feel like he had the track position as well. It's absolutely gutting there for him, Dave.
Yeah, it is indeed. I think that was just a case of Andy Dorman coming slightly too far across. And actually, we must point out here, the pit window is now closed. It's on 0 on the timer. That means this is the last lap. Robbie Stapleford just has to bring this home for another 20 seconds or so. A 12-second advantage here on P2. I mean, he just has to bring this home here, Aaron.
Yeah, tap or no tap at La Source, Dave. This guy has been absolutely majestic in the way that he has been driving today. Got pole position, started from the pits, and will take the win in this Spa 40-minute race brought to you by VRRC. He slides across the line here. Oh, he's weaving, guys. He's taking a break. What a great drive here from Robbie Stapleford here. No one in sight, absolutely no one in sight. So we see Jordan Brennan here taking the bus stop for the final time in 2nd place. He'll come across the line to take that 2nd step on the podium, and it's got to be said that I think Luke Brown is sold for 3rd. It's surely got to be. It is Lewis Brown. I'm really sorry, Mr. Brown. Lewis Brown in the Mercedes taking 3rd place, and that is your podium rounded up.
Yeah, that's a great result from Lewis Brown. I think it's probably one of the cleanest cars on the grid. Shows he just kept that really out of any sort of big altercation there at the start. And I tell you what, fair play to him, brought it home in 3rd place, only 10 seconds off the bat of Jordan Brennan. Jordan Brennan also great drive there. But But Robbie Stapleford, as you say, start from the pit lane. We'll have to find out what actually happened there, why he wasn't on the grid. But he seemed to manage to pull away when the lights came on, and he's managed to come home, take away the win. You know, you can't really fault him, can you, really, Aaron?
No, we take off our caps to him, young Sir Stapleford, with an absolutely fantastic drive here. Riddick will take fourth. He didn't have to pit, so that's a fantastic sneaky. We didn't see it coming. But Riddick there take fourth. Mr. Bird will round out the top 5 there in the number 7 McLaren. Dorman in at 6th. Carroll in at 7th after that last-minute scare through Lacombe, and it'll be Hayden, Weston, and Laramie will round out the top 10. The rest of them, unfortunately, DNF in there. Should have finished the race, Mr. Goff. I feel like you deserve that much, but yeah, that's our 10. That's our remaining 10, Dave.
Yes, it was a very dramatic race, wasn't it? Plenty of action, but I tell you what, honestly, I've really enjoyed that, Aaron. That's a really good start for a GT4. And you know, we're holding GT4 in the League of Champions, so I tell you what, it's been a really good test for the cars, a really good test for the drivers, and a little insight of what it's got to hold.
Big question for you though, Dave. Are you going to be looking? At those bop sheets again for the next race?
I am indeed, but you know fine well. It's a typical racing driver thing, is to look for any single advantage they can pick a hold of, and they'll go with it and just try and increase it. It's what racing drivers do. So, yes, they've managed to find a little bit more speed in that Supra than what I could find out of it. But you know what? You can't take it away. Robbie still drove a great race.
No, that's what race is all about. Finding that speed in all those little places, all those incremental changes that make that big change, that big picture. And Stapleford drove his heart out. Big thanks to him. Well, congratulations to him. And I really want to see what he has to say when we go interview him a little bit later on. But that was fantastic. What's next on the VRRC calendar?
So next on VRRC calendar is we have the One Mate Cup. Brilliant there by Mike. Yeah, bringing it up on screen. The One Mate Cup M235i Cup. First round on the 5th of April at Croft. Fixed setup, which, you know what, if I'm honest, for an entry series where people feel like they can just come in, sign up and straight away have what everyone else has got, it's fantastic. So £50 sign up fee, first place prize gets £100, and a 3 months membership to the VRRC memberships.
Yeah, so obviously you work in depth in VRRC. Could you tell us a little bit more about the membership for people watching that want to get signed up? Because I feel like that's a really important part of VRRC.
Yeah, so there's 3 membership sign-ups. So there's a basic level which gets you entry to basically our non-streamed events, if you like. So the events that happen as Members Cup, we've got Time Attack, we've got fun races. That's what the sort of basic membership gets you. Then you've got our mid-entry, which gets you entry to the League of Champions. You still got to pay an entry fee, but it allows you to enter with the membership. And also the memberships just help basically cover sort of our admin costs and also the server costs. But it also gets you a discount on things like our sim rig chassis and discounts on setups and coaching as well.
Awesome, thank you so much for that, Dave. I really do appreciate that. I think we're going to go straight to interviews. Dave, are you ready for your interview, man?
Yes, I'm already down here in the interview box, and we've got our 3rd place driver, Lewis Brown. We have actually said on stream that I believe you had the cleanest car. It must have been a reasonably clean start that for you, was it?
Yeah, that first lap looked a bit hectic. Yeah, no, it was just I just knew that we had to keep our head down. And there was a lot with the track limits because it's so easy to just drop a wheel off around this track. But yeah, did what we need to do at the end. I was hoping we were going to try and get the undercut on Jordan, but he was just so consistently quick that we just couldn't catch him.
Yeah, I mean, Jordan was, driving one hell of a race as well. But to be fair, Lewis, with how clean your car was as well, fantastic effort there to bring the car home in 3rd. It's brilliant to have 3 different cars on the podium as well. Let's face it, the Mercedes was the bit of the boat amongst the 3, but to bring it still home on the bottom set of the podium, fair play, Lewis.
It was difficult. The other cars were very quick in a straight line. We were struggling a little bit, but no. So yeah, it's such close racing as well. The whole event was really good. It was in practice I think there was like 5,000 separating the top 5. So yeah, it shows how close it all is as well.
Well, that's great news, that, Lewis, and congratulations on bringing it home in 3rd place. We'll move on to our P2 driver, Jordan Brennan. A very eventful start, but you kept it reasonably clean and managed to get away and luckily not be overlapped, as Lewis said, by himself.
Yeah, the start was a bit messy. Just got a car sent up the inside of me, which was fun. But yeah, I don't think I've ever driven so consistently in a car before.
Well, to be fair, it really did actually show on the screen. I was looking at your lap times. You were consistently within like 1 or 2 tenths every single lap, and actually we've just seen the Turn 1 incident on stream there. It was unfortunately one of your fellow BMW M4s actually launching up the inside and did sideswipe, but you did very well to keep it pointed in a straight line. I take the damage from that first collision wasn't too heavy, was it?
I didn't feel anything, so no idea. No idea what damage.
Well, as also we're seeing on the stream here, you ended up really quite far in the back in the pack from the start, but you did really well to bring yourself back through to 2nd place. As you said, you know, really strong, consistent driving, you know, great car control, and fantastic result, Jordan. Well done.
Yes, thank you.
And we'll move on to our P1. You know, you put it on pole. Unfortunately, you weren't there on the grid for I don't really know what reason, but you managed to start from the pits, luckily, and it's managed to transform itself into a 1st place. Well done, Robbie Staples.
Yeah, cheers, Dave. Just started from the pits, and I want to say thank you to Rich for letting me back out at the pack, and yeah, then just started to make a gap to Butler at the start, and then just maintained that gap, and then pit stop. I think I just did a good pit stop, and then yeah, just went from there, and then Brennan started to catch me towards the end, but I had too much of big of a gap for him to catch, so yeah, brought it home.
I've got to ask you, Robbie, it did pop up on my screen there that you had a collision with the environment about 5 minutes from the end, or 4 minutes from the end. Let's see if I'm right. Was that the inside wall by any chance on T1?
Yeah.
It was.
It just clipped it slightly. I just clipped it, and then yeah. Luckily I didn't get too much damage. It was still like yellow, so that was alright.
Yeah, well, that's probably one of them apexes where you don't want to clip it too hard.
Oh no.
Well,
okay,
honestly, Robbie, great race there. Well done for bringing it home in P1. Our, you know, 1st champion, if you like, of our 1st endurance race. Phenomenal result, and we'll hope to see you on the grid very shortly.
Yeah, cheers, guys.
I'm going to claim that, Aaron. I was right.
I mean, when you know it, man. That was awesome. I was listening to that. I was like, please don't be the first one. Please don't be the first one. Please don't be the first one. And then he just said it. I was like, damn it, he's right. That was quality. It was great. It was great to hear from all of them. And I think Rich is waiting for an interview. Is that right, Dave?
Yeah, we'll jump in with Rich now. In fact, I believe. Is Rich coming in here, or is he going down to the interview booth? I'll go to the interview booth and find out what's going on. Is Rich down here in the interview booth?
I am.
Well, I don't think that was too bad for our 1st endurance race. Plenty of action, plenty of cars on track, plenty of did not finishes. But I tell you what, it really delivered.
Yeah, did it? It was good. Was it good to watch?
That was great to watch. Robbie Stapleton fitting the wall within the last few minutes was quite interesting.
Yeah, a few people had problems with their pit stops, but 1st endurance race with pit stops, so I expected that. But yeah, no, it was fun. It was fun. I managed to wrestle around the Sin R1, so that was fun. But,
yeah, we've got to ask about that actually, because in practice, you know, you were lapping a little bit off, but especially in the race, it seemed like you actually got really quite familiar with the car, and the lap times were getting really impressive.
Well, I only drove it a couple of days ago for the first time, and you know, first time driving the car and at Spa, so I'm learning as I go along. But yeah, I managed to get down into the 231s, which was better from where I started, but does need some work, this car. So I'll be going back and speaking to the guys at Gorillas to see if we can get it done, because I quite like it.
Yeah, I think so does the Supra as well. Thanks for helping. Thanks for helping run it, Rich, and
no worries, man.
Yeah, congratulations on, to be fair, a really strong finish.
Cheers, thanks very much.
And there we go, Aaron, the only Sin finisher in the R1, but I tell you what, he wrestled at home in a reasonable position there as well.
Yeah, and I think it goes to show that even if, you know, you don't have that pace that the top guys are running, if you can keep your nose relatively clean, I feel that you can make up positions, and no one really notices. You're kind of making advantage on that collateral damage of everybody else, right? So I think he did a really good job. He had a really good finish, and it's onwards and upwards for Rich Hayden there. But unfortunately, you didn't tell him that it was pink, not red. You'll have to see that back on the broadcast.
I did miss that, but I'll be sure to tell him.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and I think we're not going to see the full results right now. They will be posted on social media tomorrow. Obviously, I think there's an adjudication process, and obviously it was a very hectic start. So a lot of reviewing for that as well, there, Dave.
Yes, I think I've got a busy night and tomorrow ahead of me, don't I?
Yeah, I mean, just protest after protest. Or maybe, I don't know. Maybe people were just happy with the way things went. But it was a great result for the top three, especially. And just want to say a big congratulations to Rillig as well. Didn't see a lot of him in the race, but he snuck up there to 4th place. That was a good job from him as well there, Dave.
He did, yeah. Brilliant result.
I think that is everything from us here at VRRC. Thank you so much. I'm Aaron Martin-Pilkington, and I've been joined by Dave Marshall. Thank you so much, dude, for joining me. It's been an absolute honour to work with you tonight.
Yeah, pleasure, and hopefully it's not the last time we see you in the VRRC box.
Hopefully not. But that's all from us. Thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned. Stay up with the action with VRRC. Go check out their website. Get a membership and come racing. That's all from us. Thank you and good night.
The inside of Coates.
Martin gets too heavily involved.
And that's Whitehead and Coates.